Welcome to Dungeon Fight Club, and I'm Zombie Caddy. Today we discuss whether canon even matters anymore, and whether Wizards is running the hobby into the ground with too much paid content, or if some healthy competition can change that. The Scorpion and the Fox. Years ago, at the beginning of a new wave of tabletop players, when Critical Role and Stranger Things were showing the world a nostalgia for Dungeons & Dragons, there was an interview long ago where the creators of Dungeons & Dragons promised they were scaling back on books and scaling up on quality. It reminds me of the story of the Scorpion and the Fox. I remember hearing this story on an old Star Trek episode. Star Trek Voyager, I think it was. And it went something like this. A scorpion was walking along a bank of a river, wondering how to get to the other side. Suddenly, he saw a fox. He asked the fox to take him across the river. The fox said no. "If I do, you'll sting me, and I'll drown." The scorpion assured him, if I did that, we would both drown. So the fox thought about it, and finally agreed. So the scorpion climbed onto the fox's back, and began to swim. But halfway across the river, the scorpion stung him. As the poison filled his veins, the fox turned to the scorpion and said, "Why'd you do that? Now we'll both drown." "I couldn't help it," the scorpion said. "It's my nature." It's funny to think of it. 2 books a year, 2 quality, thought-out adventures, a promise to focus on story, to make publications a major event for the community. And it's not just some kind of Mandela effect either. Many in the community remember the same promise to focus on story and the adventures. But since then, it has just been a printing press to create an unsustainably expensive library of books. Not to mention the reprinting of books that makes other books redundant. And now there are legacy monsters and updated monsters and classes that either work one way or not. The digital powerhouse of D&D Beyond, making it almost pointless to pen and paper your character. But requiring additional payment for content you may already have in a book form and then in VTT is just, well, it seems like a money grab. It seems Wizards of the Coast has forgotten their way. What could be dished out in a weekly magazine or free extra on D&D Beyond is put under the title of canon or not, making convenience expensive in the process. How does it start? Not all of these innovations are bad, but it creates a division in expectations. There's a mental trick that gets played every time you call something canon. It's why DM's Guild was a great thing to show people's work, to even pay people for their hard prep work as a designer. But much like Apple and other platforms that wall you off to keep you as a customer, Wizards does so with their stranglehold on the canon, which inconsistently changes depending on the book they want to promote. Now this essay isn't going to be about bashing a company for making money. It's how it works. They get big and try to keep expanding. Why would they want to let competitors thrive or people pockets go unplundered? The point though is to highlight how much of what we are getting could be free and they still make a lucrative profit. So why is canon important? Well, because to say something is official makes you feel as though you're playing the real deal. Since the beginning of D&D and tabletop, the mythos, lore, and history is an important part of the game. It's why Lord of the Rings is amazing, and the spin-off Amazon series is trash. You know it has some basis in a canon world, but the things in it aren't. It's why The Witcher is a good show when they follow the canon, but crap when the writers think they know better. It's why so many movies and shows miss the mark with fans. Canon matters to people. It validates that feeling of nostalgia. And just like Uncanny Valley with CG, where something can be just off about visual effects and break you out of it, the same is true about established canon and story. What Wizards is doing is taking the canon and their official stories, designs, monsters, and all that, and charging you for the illusion of authenticity. You can make a goblin that throws grenades, but it's not canon. Wizards for $1.99 has a goblin that throws grenades, with flavor text. And if you pay $8.99, you can get a whole group of monsters from the same book. That's how this game works. They use their official marker for lore and canon to make money and make you feel like your homebrew is, well, secondary. If you bought the top 5 or so books a year that Wizards is publishing, as well as the D&D Beyond subscription and content, You're paying twice for the same thing based on nostalgia, on the illusion that what they are selling is better than what you can homebrew. And I promise you, it's not. I bought Rime of the Frostmaiden and Descent into Avernus. Both were fine. Both seemed extremely rushed in story. And when you got down to it, many of the counters were boring. In the end, if any of my players ever actually play Rime of the Frostmaiden or Descent into Avernus, they would find themselves in a completely different world. The books were a good guideline, inspiring, and convenience for quick ideas in a pinch. In fact, as far as they know, they are playing the canon. But that's the miracle of this game. As far as they know, they're playing the canon. But almost every NPC has been changed out, thrown away, and every quest has been something I've either retooled or just completely replaced. But it's not worth it for you to buy this, then have to buy the digital copy, and then have to buy a VTT version as well. This is a game of imagination. Homebrew is the real canon at your table, or at your computer. Wizards should be in the business of supporting the community's imagination, not squeezing people for every penny. It's why having a big adventure and a source book once a year would make it more of an event. It would mean something. It would mean you could at least finish one adventure and then start another in a reasonable time. This is why games like MCDM and Critical Role's new RPG seem so incredibly appealing right now. They haven't been corrupted by providing endless, for-profit minor changes. They are reprinting, reimagining the same things and calling it new content. How many Vecnas will we see? Now, it's $39.99 to play the new Vecna, even though we got a Vecna like 2 years ago. As to how long this will play out, one can only guess. So how substantial is this? How much money does it cost to play a game that should just cost you some dice and paper and pencil? Well, if you bought everything from Wizards and kept up to date, it would be about $1,100 for 44 source books and $580 for 25 adventures, plus $6 to get imaginary dice. That's just the digital copies. Think of that 44 source books. That's not story. That's not adventures or encounters balanced and tested for you. That's monsters, magic items, races, classes, and rules. And the 25 adventures are mixed between full standalone books and the one-shot adventures. So really, 25 books is a stretch. I know they'll never do it, but buying the book and then getting a digital copy for like 10 extra bucks, that seems reasonable. How about putting out some of these one-shots, just making them free? I'm not opposed to them making money. I'm happy now, though, that they're going to have some competition, because they need it. Because, yes, Pathfinder is good competition, and for a long time, Pathfinder was outselling Dungeons & Dragons before this latest revival. But they need the competition so that they learn a lesson. They learn that when you pinch a community for all of their money and assume that you can sell 6 books a year, it's not just Gary Gygax in his basement with a bunch of friends making a company so that everybody can have fun and play this game that we all love. But I'm hoping that with MCDM coming out with their RPG, and Critical Role coming out with their RPG, and Pathfinder revamping theirs and possibly coming out with some more content, that this can be a way for them to learn a lesson. They think that they have the stranglehold on the canon. But guess what? The canon at your table is what you made. So if you go into an adventure, instead of the tested and wizard-approved wizard who's going to attack your group, you just make your own. Well, your players don't know that. And this is a real problem with the community. That worry, that idea of what canon that they are selling you. Well, guess what? It's been crapped on for a while. There's many instances of this. And this latest deal where they're selling Vecna for $39 now for a one-shot, it's ridiculous. $39, $40, so that you could play a one-shot and just have a big boss at the end. Guess what? Take a necromancer, tell people that he's missing a hand and an eye, and they will believe that that is Vecna just as much as anyone else. Matt Mercer showed it in Critical Role. His series finale, big Vecna fight. It was amazing. It was great. People talked about it. Guess what? He made that. That wasn't official Vecna. That wasn't a Vecna that was approved by Wizards of the Coast. Matt Mercer made that. Your canon at your table is just as important as any of the stories that have been ever told. It's just as important as Dritz. It's just as important as Katie Bree, Wolfgar. Like, that's great. There's this lore and there's story, and you can use that as the background. In many of my stories, I've had NPCs come in and say hi, or help them out, or give a quest. And I'm going to talk about this more in another video, but it really is true. If you hear the DM advice of steal everything, you should steal everything. Because guess what? Wizards of the Coast did. If you really want to get down to it, a lot of the stuff that they use is actually from Conan. If you really want to see where a lot of D&D I think came from, read the Michael Moorcock series called Elric. That series has spells that are in D&D. Like, they'll say things. They'll use abilities that are from D&D. This was written by somebody long before Gary Gygax made D&D. So, when you think about this money pinch that we're dealing with right now, you're thinking about all the things you want to buy and how you're not going to get to see it. It might cost a little too much money for you. Well, don't worry about it. Make your own. That's what this whole game's about. It's a big imaginary game. We're playing Barbies and G.I. Joes in our head. That's all this game is. If you try to make it any more than that, then you're really doing yourself a disservice. Because that's the beauty of this thing. The imagination that we use. That's what's amazing about this game. And if it's going to stay alive, it's going to be because the community keeps it alive. Because people like MCDM and Critical Role, because they keep competition, and Paizo, they keep competition coming. Because we need a competitive, open space where everybody can think up a good game. Well, that's all I gotta say. Be good to each other out there. Bye.
Thank you for watching. 3, 2, 1, subscribe!